Hey, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Parul, for the introduction. It was sweet of you. Yes, we'll move ahead. We'll quickly start. But before starting, I had a couple of questions from everyone. So, guys, has everyone set up the prerequisites which were needed for the component library? Because it's gonna be a hands-on session mostly. Uh, I am assuming yes. If no, or if you have any queries, please feel free to ping it on the chat. Because in next couple of minutes we will start the prerequisites. Ekta, would you be able to share the prerequisites here on the chat as well? So we'll share the prerequisites on the chat as well. Okay. Ekta has already shared the prerequisites on the chat. Please go through that. Okay. Um, awesome. Then we'll start. Ekta, can we move to the next slide? Hey. So very first slide, I mean, we'll talk about why and what and why. I mean, what is a component library? I mean, why do we need a component library? A lot of you may have already worked upon a lot of front-end based projects, huge scale projects or a small scale projects. But after a point of time, we all realize that there are some components which we may have duplicated, or there are already teams who have built something similar. So how do you solve that problem? So one easy solution, and fortunately or unfortunately, the only solution for that is a component library. So what is a component library? It is a set of ready-made UI components. So when you build a component library, you ensure that you follow an atomic structure wherein you have the base level elements as an atom. So things like buttons, input boxes, text boxes, those are all atomic. Then you go molecular. So when I say molecular, things like accordions could be molecular. And when you say organism, so a template like an entire header could be an organism. So that is why, and that is how you think of a component library in general. Of course, they are modular in structure. When I say modular, multiple atoms or multiple molecules can combine together to make one organism. When you talk about the organism or atoms or molecules, right, in atomic structure design, you will easily find it over in internet what it is. So that's one thing which it follows. Another is it offers you a great amount of customization of components to a certain degree. So let's say there is a button, and you've usually seen, every one of you may have already seen that when you have a modal or a pop-up which asks you to either submit or click or cancel, right? So essentially those are not two separate buttons. Those are one button, single button driven by different props. So that is how you can customize it. Examples: buttons, accordions, all the typographies which you have. Let's say H1, H2, H3, fonts, small, large, everything. Those are all component libraries. So you won't have to reinvent a wheel if you have a component library. It's just that you define and create them once, and others can simply follow it. The next question: why do we need a component library, which we've been talking about? You need a button. If somebody has already developed a button, why would you want to redevelop it, right? You can just ask a team that, yes, give me a button, I'll simply use it. Is ever evolving. Of course, you have a button today. Your use case is very simple. Let's say you only want to have a primary button or a submit button, which looks blue in background, white in font. However, tomorrow a business user or a product owner comes to you and say, I want a secondary button as well, which will be used to cancel. This time you will not go ahead and create a new button. However, if I talk specifically in React terms, you will add a new prop, which will define how your secondary button should look like. And accordingly, you'll give the styling. Another benefit, as all the components which we are building in component library will be used by multiple consumer apps. So you can be one thing assured of, that if you have, let's say you are working for an e-commerce website, right? It has 5 applications inside it. You can be sure of it that if application 1 has a button in blue color, application 2 will also follow the same. And similarly for fonts and everything. So that is what it brings: consistency across the consumer apps. And of course, it improves on designs and with iterations. Yep, I think over to you, Ekta.
Okay, so before moving to what we're going to study next or what we're going to learn next, the first question that comes up is design system same as component library? And this question is for all of you. And what you will see next is a poll where you have to answer to this question in a yes or a no. So Parul, would you like to initiate that poll so that we can get answers from the audience?
Sure. I hope everyone is able to see the poll. Yeah, we're getting the votes.
We're still waiting for a couple of people. I think there are 4 to 5 people who are yet to answer it. Let's just wait for 30 seconds more and then proceed, Ekta.
People who are not answering, please feel free to answer. I mean, there's nothing to be hesitant upon. This is just an opinion. So feel free. We use the last 10 seconds and then we will end the poll. Okay, I will end the poll now and let's see what we have as the results. So we see that majority of people understand that design system is not as same as the component library. So when we started with this component library and design system, for sure it was very confusing. We usually used to think that component library is same as design system because we are using like colors, typography, the styling and everything in the component library. But how is it different is what we will see in the upcoming slide. Well, a design system is the one that contains the component library. So how it happens is your design system is the source of truth, and it contains all your guidelines, the pattern library, the branding, tone of voice. And once that is decided by the designers of the team, then what follows next is the component library. So for example, my button is following a branding, says purple color is what the brand color will follow for the primary buttons. So that is decided in my design system. And then follows next is my component library, which contains of these components. And these components utilize those design tokens and those values. Well, what comes next as a design system is this like few tools that we have, Figma, Zeppelin. But what we have right now, or I can show you, is this Figma file. Most of you must have used in your projects. Some of you might not have. So we can quickly have a look on how it looks like. So when you see, when I say that my button can have different states, my button can have different variants, can be primary, secondary, can be disabled, it can have a hover state with a different color. My form elements can have different states, they can follow different guidelines. So this is how this Figma and this tool helps me to just keep all those guidelines together in one place. And after that, when I say in my, maybe if I'm following React and I create a button, I can use all of these things as design tokens in my component library. So in short, design system is just the standards and documentation around the look and usage of each component. Moving to the next thing is what we have been waiting for is to code, and we are hoping that we have, like, everybody is familiar with the prerequisites that we have shared. They have set up those things in the system. And now we will start with setting up the component library. So as expected, or in the prerequisite, it was asked that you can choose a modern editor, maybe a VS Code. Here we will be working on Visual Studio. Cool. So starting with, for now, I will share a repo link that you can clone, and then we will check out to a particular commit. But before that, you need to go to the GitHub and create your own repo first, your own repo where you will clone this repository that we will be sharing. Yeah. For example, just go to GitHub.
So Ekta is setting up a new repository for you. I mean, not for you, but to showcase how we can create and everything. How do we set it up? Just follow. In case you are stuck somewhere, please feel free to use the chat or Q&A sessions.
Go to your repositories, do a new repo, and just give a repository name. So for now, I had just given a Geek Night repo name, or you can give anything that you want. It's up to you. You want to make it public or private, your choice. You want to add any of the files initially, it might not be that important. So you can go ahead just with providing this name and selecting any of these two options and do a create repo. What you see next is few commands which you can just go to your terminal and run these commands wherever, for example, on desktop or in your projects folder, wherever you want to create this folder and or the project name, and inside that run these commands. So I will take few seconds because I've already done some setup, but I would like you to follow these few scripts and then we can go next. Okay, what we can do, so there are already two approaches. The other thing that we can do is, let's go to the other repo which we would like to clone, and so I will share this in the chat and you can clone this repo. Please use this link to clone the repo, and then you can follow these two steps. To set the origin to the one that is for your Git repository, and then setting the branch, checking in the branch. And please let us know if we are going quite fast. I mean, this is like for you. So if you're feeling that we are running a little bit faster, or if you're like stuck in the middle, just feel free to write in the chat.
Correct. So guys, a few steps when you clone, after clone, because when you clone it, it will be pointing to our own remote, right? So you will have to remove the .git folder. So if you can do it together, Ekta, I think that will help them. If you've created, right? So Ekta will do it together with you. She will clone the existing repo with you guys.
I will just clone this here. And we'll just check into, I will just move to that component library. And now I will just set my git remote. So here you can see first that to what origin currently the repo is set to, like the URL which it is set to. So for now it is component library.git, but I want to change it to my personal one, like pointing to my own repo. So I will just do this, and you can find it on your like on your side using like git remote icon for your repo, and just do it. And now when you will do git remote -v, you will see that it has been changed. Okay then. So you must have got code in your, like this component library directory in your machines. And this looks like, so you have right now the entire repo, but what I would like you to do is to check out to a particular commit, which I will share just after checking out here. So let me share this with you. So Ravinder is sharing one commit SHA with you, and you can check into that. So I'm assuming that you're able to check into this particular commit. So for now, what you will be able to see in a directory is just a boilerplate or a setup where just a few information that we can share is that there's just few less code in the package JSON naming the component library we have, few of the dev dependencies and peer dependencies. So here, one thing to keep in mind is that before working on component libraries, what we do is that we keep, like, the question can be why we have kept peer, like React and React DOM in our peer dependencies and not in dependencies or dev dependencies. So just to, so what would happen if we keep this React and React DOM in dependencies would be that the consumer app will get dependent on the particular version of the React and React DOM that is present here. What we want is that our component library should be compatible with the versions of the dependencies that are with the consumer app. We don't want to make our consumer app dependent on the make it dependent on the dependencies present here. So that is why we have kept this as peer dependencies. And we haven't used Webpack, but we have used Rollup. Also, for here, this is the name of the package that we would use further and publish it. Now, for the starters, we have a simple typography component as a reusable component, or you can say one component in the component library. You can just have a quick look, and after that, we will start building our own component. So here, if I just quickly share, since this is a TypeScript project, we prefer using interfaces and giving the types to whatever code we are writing here. So this typography component is nothing but a span, but how it is derived or what is governing the behavior of this typography is the props that a consumer app passes. So for example, it can be H1, H2, H3, small, medium, large. And what we are doing is right now setting up the class names based on the props that a consumer might add to this typography component. This means that
guys, do we need to zoom in, or yes, or is it good for everyone? Anyone in the chat can just mention it, or if you could do command +1.
I think it's fine for everyone. People have posted it.
okay, so as I was saying, that there can be chances that or not all the props that a consumer, so not all props might be mandatory for the consumer, right? There can be some which can be optional, and there's some which are mandatory. So that you can set. For example, my text type is not a mandatory prop. That means if the consumer app does not send it, it is completely fine. But obviously, what I want to show, the text is a mandatory thing that a consumer has to set. So that is why we can have just text type as a default value saying medium, and the rest of the things are passed as mandatory. Quickly moving to the CSS part, just to show how we are handling it. For now, we are doing it like in CSS. You can choose your own preprocessor. That is completely up to you. What you just need to do is set up. If you're using Rollup, do that setup or add a plugin in Rollup. Or if you're using Webpack, add that plugin in Webpack. That's all. But for now, to keep it simple, we are just using CSS. So just governing these classes and describing how we want a font size and font weight, how different typographies will differ based on styles. Cool. So you already have one component with you. What we are going to build next is a button component. And let me start with you, and you can continue with me. So in components, let's have a folder saying button. Right, and inside button, let's have button.tsx. And let's start with button.pxs, right? Now, just want to import this and let's start creating our button. Cool. So let me first think of what we would need here, right? My first step is that I just need a button, a simple HTML button. But this button should definitely have a text that is passed from the consumer. That means one of the props that I need from the consumer, and which according to me is a mandatory because I can't set a default value for it, is this label. That means I will want it as a prop. So I have a label here. Now what we do is, let's create an interface for the same, saying button props maybe, where we have a label which is mandatory and which is a string.
People, you're following us, right? I mean, this is supposed to be a hands-on session. So just confirming you are able to follow us. We are not going too fast. Just ask them if they're able to follow.
I will. So once we just create this component, I will stop for some seconds so that everyone comes on the same page. So we're just exporting this component. So obviously that's the advantage of TypeScript. So right now it is saying that it is of any type. What I just need to do is set it with button props. And here, this is just a basic step that I would need to follow to create my button component. Before adding more props to it and configuring a button more after this, so I would like wait for a few seconds so everyone is on same page, and I will look after the Q&A.
I think Ekta, if you could also explain how do we label, how do we explain or elaborate on the props by adding the comments on top of it. Okay. And yes, and there was a question from Sarthak that if we want to add additional class to typography, how do we do that? Okay. Okay. Sarthak, so it will be answered very soon.
Yeah. So for now, what we are seeing is a basic button component, but when we move to the next commit, we will see a well-established button component where we have use cases that you're like asking in Q&A as well. So one of the questions that was asked by Sarthak is how we can append multiple classes to a single button component. That will also be covered. Cool. So for now, like for me, label was one of the props. I can have a variant saying I want an outline variant or a contain variant. And similarly, I can just say here that I take a variant as a prop, and maybe here I say that this is optional. So for me, variant is contained by default. And here as a class name, I can just add a style saying BTM hyphen area. So that is how we can use these props and combine it here. But there is a question by Sarthak that for now I'm just using one class. What if I want to use a combination of these classes? So then what we can do, and that will go in the next minute. But what I want right now is to try out your own props. So for example, think of a prop that you feel that a button can have right now. Can be size of the button, or any prop that you can think of. Try it on your side, and then we will move to the next one, next step. Also, don't worry about the CSS part right now, because that can be you can use it from what I've already created, and maybe later when you have to try it on, you can do it yourself. Cool. So what we are going to share next is a commit ID where we'll see a button component well developed with its CSS and some of the use cases that we can encounter in our daily projects. So Ravinder is going to share that shy ID with you, but I think it is in chat and you might not be able to copy it from here.
I think when I answer a few things, let's open up a question if you can.
I am able to answer one of the questions. So yeah, so the question Sarthak asked in the last, I have answered to that question as the shy ID that you can check out as the next shy ID.
It's simple. It's BA52A90. Which one is very... Yep. Yes. If you can zoom in this part as well, the terminal. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, guys, before the checkout, you will have to stash your changes because we have the commits. So yes, you'll have to stash it. And don't worry, you won't lose anything. We have our entire Git repo with all the changes and everything set up. Git clean -tf. So everything is set up.
So I'm assuming that everybody is able to check into this commit. What I want you to do right now is just have a look at this button component and create this button component yourself.
Okay, I think you already have the checkout, right? We wanted to give you a previous commit, but I think that is fine. So now that you already have a check-in, if you could explain them about the strings and everything. Yeah.
Okay, so ideally our intention was that maybe you could have followed it, but with keeping in respect of time, we will just go ahead and we'll explain you what we can do and extend this button component, how we can do it. Let me just make it more readable for you, and I will try to minimize this one. Yeah. So we just saw that we are using button props. We tried with the variant outline contain, can be any one of your choice. We have background color, size, label. What you are seeing, so one thing you would be noticing are these comments, right? And trust me, they are not simple comments. They are very helpful, because once you start importing these components in your consumer app, by consumer app, I mean that the application we will create and where we will utilize these button components or the other components, there you will see a definition of like what your component is exactly like. For example, if I hover on the button, and it will show me what all props I need, whether they are required or not required, and everything. So that is like this helps, this commenting helps when we use this button in the consumer app. And it's completely up to you if you want to follow it or not, but one of the best practices as we see. And yeah, now what we see, so right now we were only considering these props, right? We were not considering a function as a prop. What if the consumer app wants to add its own behavior to the button? Then what? So for that, you can pass a function as a prop as well, right? For on click, I can just ask the consumer app to pass a function and its own behavior. So if we move to, so for till now, what we did was we added a variant, we added a label here. The rest of the props you can see would be a size, a background color. Now there's one thing to know. There are two ways to add the styles here. One is using this class name, and the other one is to use this style component. Sorry, to use this style attribute here. So as Sarthak asked, like, how can I use multiple classes? This is one of the ways that you can use. So what I'm doing is button is my the basic class. So if you read it in the terms like maybe a block element modifier where I have a button, but then I have its variants, maybe primary, secondary, or here it is contained, outline, text, whatever it is. And then I have this button size. And then I join, and all of these is a combination of all the classes. Then I have the style where I want to say what, maybe I can add a background color that has been passed. And since it is it is like, if it is not passed because it is optional, I can just say I don't want to pass any background color. And then we have an on click, which is bind to this on click method. So whatever you're passing from the consumer app, any method will be bind to this on click. And what you see next is the CSS. So I mean, this is completely up to you, whatever you want to write for a button. So for us, maybe contained has a background color, this, and this is what I'm talking about. Design system versus component library. For now, I am saying that my background color, I am hard coding it here, but ideally it should not be here, right? It should come from one of the design tokens that are set in the design system, maybe saying theme.palette.primary.
Right.
And
Right.
that is how it can be.
So you would usually notice that when you build a component library, you already have a design system in place, which tells you that what your application theme is going to be or the branding is going to be. So any component library is to strictly abide to that. So example, let's say a material UI, or let's say the site you have clearly says that my button is of, let's say, color orange, right? Then giving an end user a flexibility in the component library to change the color of a button would be anti-pattern. So we are showing it here that you can change the color and everything, but if you actually let the end consumer play around with your brand guidelines and theme, so that is an anti-pattern. So don't do that. Always have your design guidelines followed from the design system, and only give the necessary changes or the customizations needed, not everything. Otherwise, we will defeat the purpose of a component library. Yep.
Exactly. So for example, your branding only follows purple, white, and yellow. But if like another consumer app comes up and says we want a different color, so I mean that should, so your component library should not suffice to that because it is outside your design system. So don't do that. Cool. So if we are following along, what you can see is a CSS file with different classes and different styles. So yeah, that's a pretty simple one. You can have it in CSS as well. I will stop here. Take a few seconds, wait for some Q&As if you have any challenges you're facing right now. If you have any questions on this particular approach, file, or anything, and then we can move to the next part, which is like for now we are just seeing the code, right? How can I see my button component actually looks like, right? Where is it? So for now we have that. For that we have a good tool, but I will wait first.
Meanwhile, you could all do yarn install. We did not do that. I think nobody did yarn install because we were just we haven't built anything. So I think to have a next step, we would all do npm install or yarn install, preferably yarn because we have a log file generated, so we know it will work. Yep. Ayush, you have a question, why anti-pattern thing, right? So assume you have built a component library, which is very comprehensive, and your design guidelines clearly says that all the CTAs that you need to have is of blue color, right? Now, for example, you give too much of flexibility in your props, wherein you almost allow everyone to change the color of your button, it is very likely that some developer may accidentally pass the color from blue to, let's say, orange or red. So that is when we say that if you give too much of flexibility with respect to the branding, the guidelines, you're defeating the purpose altogether. That is, you're almost allowing everyone to override. So don't give too much of flexibility around it. So yes, Ayush, I hope that answered. And of course, it's a CSS, right? You can almost override everything, either by marking them as important or by overriding or increasing the specificity. The intent is not to prevent the user not to do it. The intent is to give them the flexibility only what they need. So if you are, let's say, building a table, give them a flexibility that a table can have, let's say, sorting and filtering, freezing of columns and everything, but not to an extent wherein they can decide the color of the table, which is against your branding guidelines and everything. Thanks.
Agreed, Ravinder. Also, I see that people are asking like why we are passing background colors as style, not as class name. So as we said before, that we can write code in whatever way we want, right? This is just an example to show you how there are different ways to do it. It's completely up to you. When you build your own component in the component library, do it the way you want. Do it as class name or style. It's completely up to you. Cool. So so we have tried to cover maximum Q&As, and we can cover at the last, but let's move to the next step, which is Storybook. I know most of you must have heard, used, or even tried to use it in your projects, this tool, to do some testing as well as to run the components in isolation to check how they work when we pass different props. So for now, what I want you to do is to move back to the previous commit that we checked in, right? Where we were creating that button component ourselves. I want you to move back to that commit.
You can copy 016A72E.
What you need to do is, so there are two things. You will see that a storybook can be initialized. When initialized in a React project, it acts differently. When you have to do it outside a React project, there must be a different command. But since we have already React set a project, we can just do npx sb init. Let me know if you want me to copy paste or. I will share what all it does, but this will take some time.
So anyone here who does not know what a storybook is, we'll be more than happy to explain it while it's installing. I mean, I didn't know a couple of years back, so I'm assuming not everyone would be aware of it. So in case there is anyone who still wants to understand. Okay, so Omkar, what is npx sb init? Npx is nothing, just a shorthand command to run the npm directly. So you won't have to do something like npm install sb and then do sb init. So it's a runtime for npm. What is sb lib?
SB is a storybook.
SB is a storybook. So just like for Create React app, you have a shorter CLI as CRA. So SB stands for storybook. I think it is set up. Correct?
It is about.
Okay. So you see that Storybook is a tool which automatically detects the type of the project. And again, it is not React specific. Storybook can be used with any technology, anything. It's a tool. There was a question on Q&A that why do we need Storybook? Is Yarn better than NPM? There was a question around that in the Q&A. The world is divided, still divided over spaces and tabs. So is Yarn and NPM. It's your preference. I personally prefer Yarn. Ekta personally prefers NPM. So no debate about it. Yep.
And I see a very very apt question that why do we need a storybook here? And you soon see it. Why
Okay, awesome. So guys, we've been successfully able to install the storybook. We'll now tell you why is it needed and how it fits.
So first of all, let's see what this magical command actually does. So when I installed Storybook, it did a few things for me. So if you go to package.json and yeah, so you see there that you find the storybook command where it just shares a port where I want to start my storybook, and it helps me give me a command to build the storybook. So few scripts already available. And it also gives me a playground, like for example, people who are new to Storybook, they want to like see how the few stories are created initially. It gives me a collection of these stories, right? Where they have shared this, like how a button stories look like, or what a header story is, and a playground so that we can utilize this in our code base. And then we have this file where we see that from where. So now what happens is that we usually name our stories in a format like button.stories.tsx or header.stories.tsx there. So it just picks up these files based on this regex and then creates the stories based on that. Now I'm just saying stories a lot, what and how it actually looks like. So let's see where we want to run this. So this is yeah. So the next step you want to do is npm run Storybook.
Guys, if you're interested on how to write a story or something, we just showcase you one of the story that we have written. But yes, of course. Just do npm install once and
I'm trying to move this to their dependencies also.
okay. Yeah. So why we are doing this, moving into dev dependencies, because if you see the whatever component libraries that we built, right, React and React DOM was the peer dependencies. So by peer dependency, we mean any consumer application or any application which consumes our component library needs to have a React installed in them. So we are using a storybook, and the storybook, we did not install the React along with it. So that is why, just to showcase, we are doing that. If you're okay, I can share my screen. I have a storybook running already, or it will take time.
No, I think if I check into that comment, I will be able to run it.
Okay. Just a few seconds, guys.
So if this doesn't work, I can just check into the comment.
Yeah.
Then
Yes.
we just realized that we are running out of time, and most probably this will fix the issue because Storybook tries to resolve some of the dependencies internally, but if you see the errors that came up, it was not able to resolve React and React DOM. So that is why we did this step. And since it is taking a lot of time, maybe we can move back to the commit, or I think Ravinder is sharing.
I have it, Ekta, while you are setting up. I'll quickly take the control or the screen and let me know if you guys can see it. Can you see it on your Zoom? Okay, so guys, this is a storybook. Ekta will take it from here. Yes, where do you want me to go?
So yeah, so the things we were talking about, what the stories look like. So if you see here, we have, so what we did was we have a button component with different variants or different configurations that maybe how in a consumer app you like to set. If you see below, you can set some controls or knobs. By controls, I mean that, so for example, we were setting different props in the component, right? The variant, we were setting label, background color, size, on click. So when I select any of these values, how my component would look like, and it is a very good playground to test your components. Also, if interested, like people who want to do testing using Storybook, again, this is one of our great tools for visual testing. So yeah, so if you see contain looks like this, maybe you can select the outline one. If I pass anything in the label, I can edit it as well.
So you can consider it like secondary button, primary button, and a hyperlink or a text. And then these are all the props which Storybook automatically picks from, your props interface which Ekta had created. If you look at the code, this was an interface which we have created, right? The variables got picked up from there, and this is how.
Visual side, Studio Code is not visible.
Okay, let me share it once again, guys. Is it visible now? Ekta?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So if you look at the code, this is the interface which Ekta had created. Now Storybook is smart enough to pick all these props from the code itself. And how do you write a story? It's pretty simple. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so here what you see is like the title button that you see, it's like the wrapper in the storybook, like how you want to define your variants inside a particular wrapper. It can be anything, this title can be anything that you want to give. Which component you are using to build your storybook. So we want to build a story for buttons, we are passing the component. Then you see this background color, control color. So in the control side where you see the radio button and everything, you can provide your own control. Maybe you don't want the text here and you want color picker. So this controls color provides you that feasibility to pick a color from the color. That's completely up to your choice. Now we just what we do is we create a template using these arguments are mapped to the props that we are using in the button component. As simple as that. And when we bind this to a particular story that we are creating. For example, you saw 3 or 4 stories inside it, right? Primary, secondary, large, small. These are all bind to the component. But I'm saying for each of these stories, I'm passing different arguments. So my variant is and the label is button, its outline label is button. You can pass size, small, size, large, all of these props. And this is just binding a component. That is how easy it becomes to bind your story to the component, view it visually, and test it. So this is what Storybook looks like.
And I hope the question one had was, why do we need Storybook? So does it help now? It acts as a playground for everyone, your POs, your business, even the devs, that if you do this, this is how it's going to appear. So Storybook is very elaborated one. It also has the options wherein you can see the code, what code is to be written. So you can have all those plugins, additions added. So you take the control of the screen. Okay. If there are some questions, we'll stop sharing and I answer the question. We need a break. We need a break for 5 minutes. Yeah. So guys, we have a break after this for 5-7 minutes. So I'll try to take the question. What was the step to resolve the issue? Sorry, I missed. There was no step as such. Basically, you needed the React and React DOM to be in the dev dependency of a storybook, right? So we set up the storybook by using the commands. So storybook did not have a React and React DOM for its own. So you needed to set that up. That's about it. Is the buttons.story.tsx is auto-generated? No, Priyanka. This is not auto-generated. What you have to do is, I'll quickly try and share the screen again. You go inside the button component, create the file. It can be any name, button.stories.tsx. And as Ekta explained, you just have to write this piece of code. This is pretty standard, the piece of code which you write in terms of how the storybook is written, and it then gets generated there. How to version a component library? Can we switch between versions in Storybook? We'll talk about versioning. Sorry, I don't know your name. We'll talk about versioning in the next session, wherein we have how to publish a storybook, create a backward compatibility versions and all. So we'll do that. Omkar has a question. Is Storybook only for React components? No, it can be for anything. I have personally created for web components also. It is framework agnostic, Omkar. Will you show how to use the component library in the app? Yes, anonymous person, I don't know your name. It is there. We'll start. How can we provide the props in story for a parent handler like on click? Jyoti, did you mean props?
Okay, so she means like how can you pass a action, like create a function and pass it to on click?
Okay, Ekta, you had it already, right? I think we have it, right? We have passed it on click. So Jyoti, if you can see the screen, Ekta, this is the one, right? If you see the screen, we have a on click, which is coming as a handler.
But she's saying that can we do it with Storybook? I don't think I want.
So Storybook, I am not sure, but with the recent plugins which are there in Storybook, you can do almost all the actions, action knobs and everything. Everything is doable in Storybook. You can almost mimic the entire behavior. So yes, it's doable. Just have to do some R&D around it. Okay, I think we are done with all set of questions. Any other questions we have, guys? There is one chat. talk about how do you publish a component. I hope everyone has resumed. I'll quickly share my screen from where we were. So this is again the same component which Ekta had created. We had checked that out. So the next step in this component is, or in this entire demo is that you will do yarn build. So what does a command yarn build do? If you look at package.json, it's a build command which takes configuration from the rollup. So in the rollup configuration, it's, if you look at it, it's a standard configuration that how do we want to build a component library and what all things we need. So we need, of course, the files and their types as well. So one of the question was, why are we exporting interfaces? The interfaces are exposed so that you can also export the types along. So quickly, to do that, we'll do yarn. If you'll see currently rm minus rf. I don't have any dist folder. So dist in my case is a build. So I'll do yarn build. Sorry if I'm on yarn. So yes, you'll notice quickly that a dist folder is created. This dist folder is nothing but your package. How you create your package. If you see, it has ES5 as well as a regular files with the declaration. So these are the components which have already been tagged. If you see a typography component and the button components which we created. So this is the build folder. Now next step, of course, is to publish it onto npm. So you must be wondering, there are a lot of packages on the npm. How do I publish it? So first up that you will have to do, guys, is everyone has to do yarn login, npm login. I have already logged in, so I'm not going to log in again. Can you all guys log in, npm login, put your credentials, the user ID and password, and give me a thumbs up when you are done. I can also do it, but I'm already logged in. So you will.
Ravinder, sorry to interrupt. Can you increase the font size a little bit?
Username Ravinder. Okay, so that's the challenge. I may not require. Remember my. Okay. So I have set up multi-factor authentication, guys. Just see what is it that you have set up, and please let me know as soon as you are able to log in. We'll proceed. It's a no secret, so I'm typing it in front of you. It seems my password is incorrect. Now the problem is, just give me a second, guys. I'm going a little, I've stopped sharing because I need to look for my password quickly. Okay, I think I now know what is the issue. Okay, guys, I'll just logging in. I had to reset my password. Just give me a second. So if you see, I have successfully logged in with my username, password, email, and the authentication, whatever was required. So now I'm effectively logged into NPM. So the few steps you would require for this is you have to have a NPM account, which was a prerequisite for this. I'm assuming everyone has it already. Can you? Yes, I will increase the font size, of course. Perfect. Okay. So guys, yes, I'm assuming everyone has done this. So if you saw, I'll just logged in. Now this is a dist folder that has been generated. So when you have to publish a package, what is it that you do? You come inside a files folder in the package, you come inside a files key and you mention that what is it that has to be uploaded in the dist. What is it that needs to be uploaded onto, sorry, NPM. So I have mentioned it as dist folder, right? So that means whatever is built will be published, whatever is inside this dist folder, this entire module. Now, you'll notice when I try to publish it, I will, for the sake of publishing, I will do one thing. I will create some name which does not exist. Let's say TW demo component library, or let's say showcase. Correct. I'll have it as 1.o.o. Now you'll notice as soon as I hit npm publish, what it does, it reads the package.json file, reads this name, reads the version, and uploads this entire folder onto npm. So now if I do npm publish, if I am lucky, you would see it is published. How do I verify whether it is published or not? We'll quickly npm. I'll quickly go here. If you see, it got published. Did you see? Everyone, right? And how you could use this would be like this. npm tw showcase component library. And if you see, the version is this. Now, let's say you made a very small change to your component. Example, you had a button, you had button.tsx. You just said, instead of welcome, you said hello. And of course, as it is a component, you need to change the version as well. So what you could do, you could do something like npm version minor, let's say, or a patch. This is the command. Okay. If it doesn't work, I'll change it manually, but no, it is actually the same. But yeah, anyways, if the command is not working, we'll do it like this. You'll see I have quickly updated the version myself, and post that I'll do yarn build. That will generate a new file with button as a hello in there, and post that I'll do npm publish. You will see everything is, it will be here in a couple of seconds. Yes, you see it is here. So that is how you publish a component library. Now, there can be a very good question that you may have seen, that sometimes people are able to publish it like with the @, that is with a scoped package. You will notice that there is a material UI or something that you are able to publish. So let's say try to publish it by some name TW showcase. Let's say TW showcase, right? Then if I do yarn build now, and I try to publish it now. So when I do a publish it now, it would essentially mean that I want to publish a package with this as an organization name, and then this as a package. So you'll notice when I try to publish it, it gave me an error. It gave me an error that you must sign up for private packages. So you notice that I was not able to publish. The reason, all the packages that you have in your application, which are starting with @ or something, they're organizational package. And if you want to make it public explicitly, usually these are paid names and everything, right? But if you want to explicitly make it public and still tell npm that your package is not private, then you have something like access public. Okay. It says, now if you see, it says scope not found. The reason it says scope not found, because this scope so far does not exist in npm. You guys able to follow me? That's what I'm assuming. So now, how do we create a scope? Let's do it together. If you guys can do this together with me by creating your own scope. I am so now if you say that how do we create a package? Now I'll show you. You go to organizations, correct? In the organizations, create what I created. So I want a scope by TW showcase, correct? I'll simply come here. I'll do this TW showcase. That means now this particular thing is mine. It belongs to my organization, and nobody else can publish it unless I make them an owner or maintainer. So I create it now. TW skip. I don't want to invite anyone for now. If you see, TW showcase now belongs to Ravinder Mahajan. It is inside my repo. Now, if I try to publish it, the scoped package, we call this a scoped package. Ideally, it should work. Let's see. Yes. Did you see? The package came into an organization. Now, if I go here, The package now belongs to TW Showcase. So this is how it is used. So that is what we do between a scoped and unscoped package. Anyone who was able to follow it along with me, please give me a thumbs up. Anyone? Or if you have any queries, please. So again, a scoped and unscoped package, if everyone understands, scoped package is something which is specific or private to you or an organization, right? An unscoped package is something like React and everything which are completely public. You can make a scoped package like @TW Showcase as a public one, just like we have done it. But you'll see when you work with your organizations, they have some packages of their own, right? So that is a primary difference between a scoped and unscoped. Now, let's say if tomorrow I want to have 2 more packages under TW Showcase, right? I can create multiple. So this acts as a parent domain and this acts as a child. So that is how an organization helps you. Okay, let me take that up. Next thing. Okay. So guys, we'll quickly move on to the CI/CD, or unless if anybody has a question. Okay. To go to CI/CD, I need to check out onto a particular commit. I would ask you guys to follow along. So if you could just paste it in the Q&A. So guys, you can all do git checkout. I'll do -f because I don't want to stash it and everything. So I am on a particular commit. Now, if you would notice how this particular commit works. Again, this is a domain which I had created for myself, a scope which I had created. You notice that I have something like GitHub workflows and everything. Right. So how do you automate this entire process of creation of build, publishing, buttons, and everything? So first I'll explain you. If time permits, we will try to follow it along. But yeah. So this is a CI/CD file, what it usually looks. I'll just share it. It's sharing, right? You can see my CI/CD file like that. Or just give me a second. See the screen with. Can you guys see my VS Code? VS Code, right? Yep. Okay, perfect. So guys, I'm sharing. So this is the CI/CD, what you write. So what you have to do, create a folder, or you can check out this particular one. You would see that you would have something like Node.js YAML. In the Node.js YAML, if I'll try to explain you this particular file, I'm saying that on push pull request. That means run this CI/CD pipeline or all the commands only if there has been a direct push to main branch. So main, by main, I mean master, or if there is a pull request that is raised to master, right? Then I have some set of conditions which says jobs. You build. Build is again one of the step. Runs on Ubuntu latest. That is the agent where I want to work on. This particular agent uses 16.x version of the node. So what I'm doing, firstly, I'm saying the very first step which I have is set up the node. So what it's setting up, because we want to publish it to npm repository, I'm setting up the registry to registry.npmjs.org. What it does, it sets up something which I did manually before by doing npm login. So it sets up that, and along with the node version. Then I use cache. So I have said that in case the packages already exist in the pipeline from the yarn, use that. The other thing, what I'm doing, I'm building the packages as a next step. If you see, this is equivalent to yarn install. I'm doing yarn install, and the next step after doing yarn install is yarn build. So what yarn build do? Yarn build does the same set of command which we did here, that is yarn build. It will create a disk folder again for you. That it will build a component library. And post that, there was one step which was building a component library. Then we have another step which is deploying a component library. Again, similar steps. Use my agent. Environment is production. I'll tell you how an environment can be used in future. Needs build. So this means in the GitHub Actions that it needs the build to be completed, this entire step to be successfully completed before I can deploy. So that is a sequential step. So that in a way it means the dependency. And then what I do after that, as soon as I push anything onto master, I create an automatically a new version or an automated new version. So let's say if my version was 2.0.0 when I pushed, it will automatically create a newer version, which will be 2.1.2 or 2.1.3 and push or raise a pull request to master. Again, how anybody or any action can do that, I need to give GitHub the permissions to do so. That means I'm allowing GitHub a token that GitHub, anytime that I raise a pull request onto master or something, you have my permission by the GitHub token to create a new branch and raise a pull request. This is what it does. And then next step is I'm saying publish my package. Again, I'm using one of the action which GitHub has provided. And how GitHub now has access to my credentials, or how GitHub knows that I have to log in something. What you have to do is you have to create your NPM token and assign it to GitHub like this actions. So this was just the theory part which I told you. We can do a quick hands-on around it. Everyone has been able to reach this particular state, right? I'm assuming yes, no, anybody can say yes. Okay, perfect. So first step, as we discussed, everyone needs to create their NPM token, which I will explain how do we do that. Go to your NPM, go to your access tokens. So this is the same token that you will add into GitHub, right? Follow with me, log in case you're not able to log in, guys, sorry, you won't be able to follow anything post this. You have to come here, generate a new token. When you generate a new token, the token which gets generated, that means I'm giving it a publish token. Let's say Geek Night publish. You can name it anything, it doesn't matter, the name won't matter, it's just for a reference. There is a token which gets created. Now this token which I have is this, right? This is the token that your GitHub repository would require. So what you will have to do, you will have to go inside your settings, your project settings. Inside that, you will see that there are some actions. If you guys can follow along, wherever you have cloned it, right? Go inside the secrets in your project, you will see some actions. And in the actions, you will notice that I have created something by the name of NPM token, right? And in this NPM token, it will be something like NPM token. Please don't change the name because this is the same name which we have used here, right? So what I'm saying, GitHub, I am giving you a token which is almost a login credentials for Ravinder Mahajan. That is me. And you can access it using this name. So I'll paste it, I'll update. Repository access, I'm saying it only all the public repositories can access it. So you will have to update, create a similar token here. And then if this is done, can I, guys, can I proceed? Or if someone is blocked here, I would want them to take a question here or give them a question here so that we can proceed further. Okay, I'm assuming this is fine. So first is do an NPM token, same name, update it. Second, go to your GitHub token. So how do you generate a GitHub token? You go to settings. Just give me a second. Developer settings inside that. And then in this developer settings, create a token, which is generate new token. And for the time being, allow everything. So I'll repeat my steps, guys. Go to your code, go to your GitHub, click on settings, go to developer settings. So this is you giving rights to GitHub to do everything you want, only GitHub specific. After that, go to personal access token, create a new token, just like you did. So let me name it test token. I'll give all the rights for the time being. That means I'm allowing GitHub to do anything with my repo, delete my repo, update my repo, everything. Why I need this token? Because you saw that I wanted GitHub to update my version number. So now when I generate this token, again, this is the token which I got. This particular token which I got, I will now, I can't see it again, of course. I will now go onto my project. You see that I have something like Git token as well. I will go here. In the settings of that particular project, I will have, sorry. I have a token which I'll paste here. So step by step, do an NPM, generate an NPM token, paste it here, then go to your own settings and add the token by the same name. Guys, are you guys able to follow me? Okay, I am assuming yes. In case you have any questions or any queries, please feel free to ping here. And once you'll see, we have these tokens and everything set up. Correct. Post that, you would notice currently you have a component library. It doesn't have any build and everything triggered. So build is green. Now you should see as soon as I update any version, let's say if I make it 3.0.2 or something, right? I will do something like, okay, I can't do git push because it will break. I'll show you git checkout master main, sorry. What you guys will have to do, just give the name, whatever you think is unique. These names have to be unique across NPM, right? Give them a name and just make a change. Let's say make a very small change. So I make a change to 3.2.1, for example. Now you'll notice that as soon as I do yarn status, sorry, status, okay, I will, for the sake of simplicity, guys, I'll push the dist folder along so that you know where it picks up the file and where it pushes it. Git status, git add. This folder is not changed. Okay, dist folder, there has been no change in the dist folder because I did not make a lot of changes to it. Let me go to the button component and let me do hello so that there is a change. Now you'll see when I do git status, I have a new dist folder, git add, and then I do git commit -m. Let's say Ravinder test commit. Let's say, I know this is not the perfect convention, but you'll notice as soon as I push it, if it gets pushed, yes, you will notice that there is a pipeline which will be generated. You see this, right? This is nothing, just the same code which we have written. So Git by default understands the workflow. So first step, it will use Node.js, install the dependencies and do a build. So I'll show you how it is working. Yeah, if you see, it set up a div, it created a node, it installed the dependencies, it built the packages. When I say build the packages, it did the yarn build, right? It created the same dist folder, and post that, the next step was the deployment part. Now, if you notice what we did in the same code, we created the Node.js file, and in the Node.js, we had, it is needed on build, right? So that is only when the build proceeds, then only you do it, and then post that there is a publishing command. So now, as soon as I go here, it says review pending deployments. I'll say approved and deployed. As soon as I do approved and deployed, it follows the same steps which we had mentioned in the GitHub actions. You would notice that very soon it will try to deploy. So it is trying to create an automated version failed. Okay, it says the version already exists. So let me just go and change the version. So let me wait. Why did it fail? Current version is this. Let me learn. Should not fail ideally, because if you see my package.json has a newer version. Let's say I make it 4, where it failed. Exists, right? But my tag exists. Sorry guys, this is a separate issue. Sorry, I have a tag which I created some time back. I create multiple tags. So basically every release creates its own tag. So I should have removed some of the tags in the past, but I did not. So now if you notice, if idly yarn get status, right? Get status. Get push origin. Let me do the same push again. And meanwhile, I'll remove the tags. So you don't always need your tags. Tags are only for release management. If I, let's say, go here and I start removing my tags. Let me remove it while the build is getting deployed. Okay. Now, if you'll see, if we are lucky now, you would notice that there is a build which is already being created. Okay. Let me remove all the tags because created it for different purpose, and for this we are being blocked. I know it's a very older one, right? It should work, right? Meanwhile, let me still delete everything, but yeah, you're right. So now what we did, if you see, we come here on the component library, the build is green. I'll again go to the deployed version. I'll say approved. Luckily, I'm considering myself lucky, and you will notice that this gets published in few minutes max. The version has been bumped up automatically. Okay, the current version is this 4.2.1, and you'll see publish, right? So this is all automated. As soon as I click everything, if you'll see all the disk folders, they got deployed. Now, if I'll go to NPM, you should notice I have a latest version for this one, which is 4.2.2. So you'll notice one thing. I pushed in 4.2.1. We handed over the responsibility over to NPM to create a latest version and deploy all that. So all manual effort of NPM version upgrade and everything is gone. And you would also notice now when we gave them the rights for GitHub token. So we said that as soon as you do a version upgrade on the library, please go ahead and make a commit in my library as well by changing the package version. So you'd see everything is completely automated. So that is what the benefit of automation is. And yep, that's pretty much about how do you publish a code, how do you make it CI/CD automated. I will give you guys 1 minute to ask any questions around it. or in case anybody is facing any challenge. I'm not sure how many of you were able to follow it along. We have limited time, so I'm not sure, but yeah, give me a heads up if anyone was able to follow it along with me, or in case you have any queries. Yes. Anyways, all this code has been checked in. You can at any point of time take the latest from the code. You will see all the libraries and everything set up. So this was just to demonstrate you that how do we create a CI/CD across the best pipelines and everything. What are the best practices? Yeah, I'll stop sharing now and I will hand it over back to Ekta, because there was initially a question that once you built a component library, right? How do you consume it? So we are moving towards that process now. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ravinder. So moving to how we can consume the components we have been creating so far. So what I would like you to do is just do a create React app at any place you want, and just create an app and a React app quickly possible, because we are short of time. So I have created one for myself. You can do it too. And as you know, so boilerplate for React would look like something like this one. And now what we're going to do is, so we know that we have a package right now with us, right? One that was published by Ravinder. Yes. So what I would like you to do is just do npm install and add Geek Night component library. So this will install the latest version for you. And maybe a few of you would let me know. So I see a Q&A here.
If you can update the number, and I will take it.
Right. So here I would ask you, like, what version do you see? So for me, it is 2.1.3 because it is like a few days older, but I would like somebody to share in the chat what is that version for you. Quickly, so that I can come to know that this process is completed for you, the installation of this component library as well as creating the React app. Okay, I'm assuming it is taking time, because for sure, yeah, it's creating a React app and then doing this might take some time. So if you see, that would be latest version, maybe 4.4. Just what changes that we didn't we saw in Ravinder's code. Now, so we now have this dependency as a Geek Night component library with a version, and we have an app. Now how we have to consume it? So you can do it anywhere you want, in whatever component you want. Just to show it, you can do it here. So what we need to do is just import maybe a typography component from this React library. And after this image, let's do a typography which has, so yeah, this text. So now you see that now I know what prop I have to pass. So this says it needs a text type and a text. So right now I'm passing a text here, and that can be hello world. Also, so maybe we can quickly consume that button component as well that we saw, and we can use that button component here. Can be done anywhere, like in any of the pages or the components. The way you structure your project, that is up to you. And since we realize that label is one of the mandatory field for this button components, we are passing a label. Maybe I can say a variant, and I can say it to be okay. So this is how I'm consuming my components here. You see the rest of the props are not mandatory, so this will not cause an issue. And going back to my create React app, okay, I must have not run it. Let's do npm start. Okay. So using. So you see there is this hello world, and there is this button, but we might need to send some better CSS to this one. Let's see how it, yeah, let's make it contain. And we have both of these things in our application. So as simple as that. So just imagine how life becomes easier when we have these components and I can use it anywhere in my entire project without doing like creating button multiple times or anything like that. Just a quick heads up. So for now, as I shared that the package version is 2.1.3. If I want to install 4.4.2, 4.2.2. And so we have the latest version of this component library. For now, the things will look same because we didn't make much changes, but yeah.
Hello, welcome or something.
Yeah.
You have to restart your app. So if you notice, guys, if you notice, we added a hello in front of the button. So we wanted to demonstrate whatever we did. Ideally, if everything is working fine, automation and everything, you would see something like hello, welcome. But yeah, let's. Yes.
You see that the changes are here. And that is how easy this whole process becomes. So for those who asked this question, I think now it is clear that how we can consume these components in our consumer app. Pretty easy. And next, yes, there's one thing that we want to talk about. So the repo that you had, right? The earlier one, the component library one. So in short, with respect to time, let's quickly see other few things that we want to talk about. So right now, in the components, you might see, if you check out to in that there's this card component, right? And moving to this card component quickly. And let me run Storybook for you so that you can understand what we are trying to talk about here. So if we see, for now, we have created a simple card component with a heading, subheading, a tag, and a on submit handler. And all of this as a card component, a basic card component that you see. So this is the card component that we are talking about, right? It has this heading and all of this is configurable. We can pass these props, but there comes a situation where one of your consumer asks you to, so right now you see this is a tag, right? Where I can say that this is 50% off, but this is my particular use case. But what in a scenario where the consumer wants the flexibility that they want a heart button, a like button, or a rating button, or maybe a heart icon, like whatever icon plus a component they want at this site with their own functionality. What to do in that case? Some of you might say that we can change the existing card component, and maybe with different if and else conditions, we can come up with a new component. So we can do like a new version and in the same component. For example, the card component with a like button with a heart button, maybe that scenario. But to what extent will that be feasible? Is that a right idea to have all the ifs and else in a component, a longer chain? Sometimes it is not, right? Might not be the best practice. So is there like any other way that we can follow to handle these situations? And for that, Ravinder will talk about it.
Thanks, Ekta. So yes, I'll take up the screen, Ekta, from here. Yes, so guys, this is the same component Ekta was talking about. Again, reiterating. So this is a flexibility which we thought as a developers that we can get to the client, but Client came up, said that, okay, I do not want a tag. I said, okay, no problem. Let me give you a prop here, true or false, and you can remove the tag accordingly. Then he came up with, okay, I want a like icon here. I said, again, no problem. Let me build a like icon and give you another prop. So if you see, the demands kept on increasing. Today they wanted a like, tomorrow they wanted a heart, day after they wanted a timer and everything. So in such cases, building a component and putting all those if and else conditions may not be very much scalable. So what you are taking away is the flexibility of a component library altogether, right? And it is not scalable in a way that you can't have so many if and else's in a code, cannot ship unused code to the client. So what you do in such case, you go, let's say this was a version v1 of an application, correct? Now client wants a flexibility to have anything. So in such cases wherein you have a way wherein you can't always determine what needs to be done, you would go ahead and give the flexibility to the client. So if you would see now this hello or this hello component, how we have created. Now I'll show you some piece of code here. To do that, I have a custom card, which is a replica of custom card. I'll explain you why this is a separate card. But what I have done here now, in this particular case, I'm expecting this section, the hello section or something, to come from top. That is, I expect a render as a callback, which has my component inside it. Now, how do we use it? If I go to my storybook, let me quickly open the story, right? If you would see what I have done, I have entered a button here. I can do everything, right? I can do something like dev hello world. Ideally, it should reload. Yes, if you see, I control now as an end user, you control what you want. So you give the flexibility. So anytime you feel that while building a component library, there is a piece which too much of flexibility is required. So as a developer, you should provide too much of flexibility over to the consumer application. Just give them kind of a placeholder wherein they can have their own component. How do you do that? Is something which I'll explain you. You can just create your component. It is the same component as the card component. Just give them a placeholder. So in this case, this is a placeholder, and give the functionality or expose the functionality outside. Right now, there can be a very good question that why did we need to create a separate custom card, and why could not we simply use the same card which we had here, right? You're right. But again, if we want to have so much of flexibility, you would notice that we'll end up building so many of if condition. If tag is there, if heart is there, let's say if like is there, or if custom component is there, right? Then do things accordingly. So for such use cases, you may not always be able to have the same component supporting everything. So what we recommend in general, that anytime you have a component which you cannot keep backward compatible, or you do not want to keep backward compatible for some reason, always create a v2 version of it. So if you see, this is the card, and custom card is nothing, just a v2 version of it. Original users can continue to stay on the card, but new users who want this flexibility can use the custom card. Why we wanted to maintain two cards and not come up with only one card? Assume that there is an application which was built in 2020, which was using a card component, right? And now if that application wants to now build their application again in 2021 by just changing a text, I cannot tell them to pass me extra components or extra parameters by upgrading a version, right? To keep them backward compatible in everything, what you require is create a v2 version, only in case you're not able to provide a backward compatibility, and continue with it. And always ask your new consumers or one who needs this new functionality to refer to the newer version or a v2 version, if I may say. So yep, that's what I wanted to talk about. Ekta, if we can go to the next slide.
I think you're sharing.
Sorry. Yes. Any questions on backward compatibility or v2?
I think Vikas has some question.
Yes, because you are completely right. This was a very small example that you can have render, but again, that render would be optional, right? So let's say there are 4 to 5 places or the entire section. So this was a bare minimum example. To give you an example, let's say you have a drop down which by default was a single select, and did not have any checkboxes along. And now tomorrow you have a need wherein you want to have a multi-select dropdown, which needs to have the checkboxes along, right? You would not be able to cover it up. So there'll be too many if else, too many state managements you will have to do. So it's always better to have a new component if the complexity increases too much, because you don't want to miss out on the performance. Yeah, thanks. Ekta. Yes. So again, this is the same thing what we talked about. As the component library evolves, it becomes difficult to maintain the existing components. Consumer application expects our components to be working as is. Why we need backward compatibility? Components are meant to be ever evolving and still be backward compatible. We cannot tell the consumer of the library to update the version every time. Solution: update the existing component to an extent that they are still meaningful. Just we did, right? As long as it was meaningful to add or remove the tag, it was fine. Otherwise, if you think that it's losing the context, it's losing the meaning, and a component is doing too much, please feel free to create a Vue 2 version and publish it to all the consumers that this is something which we want to do. Yeah, thanks. So there was a query around will we share the best practices? So we won't be sharing what exactly to be done in the best practices, but we will tell you at a high level that what is it that we should follow overall. So we should have pre-commit hooks to ensure that whatever unit tests that we have in a component library, they still pass. This will ensure that it is backward compatible. Of course, you check your TypeScript, unit test cases, your basic hygiene of the code, right? Similarly, you have pre-push as well. We recommend to run all the tests in the pre-push, but only recommend the related test in the pre-commit. Why in pre-push you wanted to run all the tests? Because when you do a rebase or master, right, you have a code coming from different files. So that is where it ensures that your entire sanity or entire library or entire code base is hygiene. When we talk about bug fixing, yes, you have to be very careful on how you fix the bugs and how you update a version. So let's say there is a button and a simple bug that is there is your border is not 5 pixels. So just change the border from 4 pixels to 5 pixels or something and update a minor version around it. So that is how you go about a bug fixing. And of course, if you feel that bug fixing is taking too much of toll, please feel free to move towards V2 version, because if your bug turns out to be something which requires a new component altogether, don't try to fit in everything in one component and make it 200 lines of code. Try to have a separate version and update the clients that yes, this is what we're doing. And again, as the component library evolves, right, always keep it as a best practice to only support the last possible version. So let's say if you built a component library 1 which had only 3 components, and after 3 years your component library has completely changed and you are on version 4. A client cannot come to you and say that I want a bug fix on version 1, because you have moved away from that code and your brand guidelines or everything has changed. So always a recommendation, please ask your clients or the consumers to move from version 1 to the latest version. And that is when I say that only provide support for the current and the previous version. Before that you cannot. So just like if you'll see, all the libraries like Bootstrap and everyone, they would not provide you any support for 1 or 2 versions. They will only support you for 3 or 4, assuming you are already on the latest version, which has solved all those bugs. So yes, guys, these are the general practices that we follow. Ekta, if you'd like to add something.
I think I agree with what you have said. We just as we said that for bug fixing, you must have noticed in Material UI and Bootstrap as well that there are minor releases, right? And they make sure that they clear that out, that these are not the major changes that might impact the developers, and this can be like fixed by the other teams as well. So that is like not major thing where the developers go through majorly.
Yes, Pratik, you have a question. How do you create the JS component tooltip, drop down, pop over, everything is present? Don't include the plugin. Create a component of your own, because plugins cannot give you so much of flexibility that your own components can. But however, keep in mind that not everything needs to be reinvented. For example, if let's say there is a requirement for date picker, I would not want you to build it on your own because it can take you months, or a table. right? It can take you months. So it's a call which you will have to take. If a tooltip is pretty simple, that you click on a button, it just opens up and just takes care of the position, build it yourself. No third part. I would personally not recommend you to go with third party for everything. Drop down, pop over, everything. These are all your design tokens. These should all come from your design tokens and your design system. So, yep. Thanks. I think time for Q&A, guys. Generic, any Q&A, not just related to this slide, anything related to it. Okay, I think in that case, we are done, Ekta. Yep, let's move on to the last slide. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
We are able to convey what we wanted to. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us anytime.
Yes, there are details given to you on this. Please feel free to reach out. And you will receive a feedback form in a couple of days. And just feel free to fill it. Yep. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Parul. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Parul. Thanks, Shubneet. Thanks,
everyone. Thank you.